Whether it's the next big blockbuster or the next weekly show, producers and companies are constantly diving into the medium in search of the next big hit. They do take liberties with the source material though, and sometimes when an adaptation gets everything spot on, they can even influence the source material itself. We've seen time and again how different writers and artists have managed to successfully reinvent beloved comic book characters on the big and small screens, and occasionally that involves the introduction of a new character. Quite a few end up being merely forgettable, but sometimes when the right people come together, they create a character so good that DC and Marvel can't ignore them. Over time, it's possible that fans may forget where these characters originally debuted, as they slot so seamlessly into the comics themselves. Some of the most famous comic book characters of all time literally got their starts from outside the comics, and that's equally cool and crazy to consider. So let's get stuck in. I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture Comics, and here are 10 iconic comic book characters who debuted outside comics. Number 10. Mercy Graves. As will become increasingly apparent over the course of this video, and has hopefully already become apparent if you've been watching the channel for a long time, the DC animated universe is kind of a big deal. It's frequently considered to be the definitive adaptation of DC's comics, marshalling all corners of the publisher's mythos across a variety of different shows and films. One of the more underappreciated shows though, at least when compared to Batman the Animated Series and Justice League, is Superman the Animated Series. Helmed by the same creators who made BTAS such a success, S-Taz went about applying the same formula to the Man of Steel, pulling together his entire history to impart one definitive take on the character. It was brilliant, and just as BTAS introduced a famous sidekick for the Joker years before, the show did the same for Lex Luthor, this time in the form of bodyguard Mercy Graves. Mercy was a confident presence throughout the show, and as opposed to Lex, was willing to get her hands dirty when the occasion called for it. She's since gone on to become a key part of Superman's comics and related media, making her big screen debut in 2016's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Number 9. H.E.R.B.I.E. Okay, so calling H.E.R.B.I.E iconic might be stretching things just a smidge, but you're totally lying if you say you've never seen this floating rubbish bin before, either in the comics or in any cartoon. He was created for the 1978 Fantastic Four cartoon because the Human Torch was being optioned for a solo film. An odd choice, all things considered. Oh, and yeah, apparently there was some sort of myth that the Human Torch wasn't being used because Marvel were concerned kids would try lighting themselves on fire? I mean, that's somewhat understandable. My parents had multiple heart attacks when I was growing up because they kept on trying to get run over in an attempt to become Daredevil, so makes perfect sense, really. Well, anyway, back to H.E.R.B.I.E. H.E.R.B.I.E was introduced in the 78 cartoon and somehow went on to become a staple of the comics, and it's also apparently related to Hubert and H.E.R.B.I.E. I imagine they catch up over brunch and say mean things about Mr. Fantastic. Number 8. FIRESTAR. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends is an animated series that debuted on NBC in September 1981. The show starred 3 main characters: Spider-Man, Iceman, and a newcomer to the Marvel lineup, Angelica Jones, aka FIRESTAR. FIRESTAR would make her very first appearance in a Marvel comic book a few months later in the appropriately titled Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends #1, which is a one-shot tie-in for the TV series of the same name. In May 1985, FIRESTAR would finally debut in the official Marvel Comics continuity within the pages of Uncanny X-Men #193. FIRESTAR would then go on to get her own comic miniseries in 1986, become a recurring character in the X-Men lineup, most notably in Amazing X-Men, become a founding member of the New Warriors, and even star in a one-shot issue during the Women of Marvel Spotlight in 2010, which told her story of being a breast cancer survivor. In other words, Angelica Jones has certainly come a long way from her Saturday morning beginnings. Number 7. RENEE Montoya. Batman the Animated Series was absolutely groundbreaking during its time, building upon the Batman mythos as well as bringing fresh, new faces into the mix. One character that came about as a result of the show, but has since gone on to see success across all of DC, is RENEE Montoya. Montoya was created as an original character for the TV series, but DC Comics apparently took a liking to the character's concept, and planned to bring her into the comic books as well. In fact, they actually decided to get ahead of the curve and debut the character on the page before she popped up on TV. But make no mistake, she is a product of the animated series. Without that show, there is no RENEE Montoya. That said, in addition to the significant popularity Montoya gained on television, she did a pretty good job of making waves in the comics as well, most notably in the renowned Gotham Central series, as well as when she took up the mantle of the faceless vigilante, The Question. She is such a great character, and we have to thank Greg Rucka for an awful lot of that. Rucker was involved in Montoya's outing as a lesbian in Gotham Central, her transition into the Question during 52, and her revival in the new DC continuity, where she acts as Lois Lane's own private investigator. Number 6. Terry McGinnis. In addition to the great characters that were spawned from Batman animated series, the show also had an exceptional and rather ambitious spin-off, Batman Beyond. The series introduced the character of Terry McGinnis, the new Batman who operates in what is now known as Neo-Gotham. With a new and improved Batsuit as well as a youthful exuberance that contrasted nicely against a now elderly Bruce Wayne, Terry was an incredibly charming character right from the start. The character would go on to star in the film Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, which is one of the single best Batman films of all time, animated or otherwise. In fact, I think it might be my favorite Batman film in general. There's just no beating it. But despite his popularity, DC seemed hesitant to push Terry as a member of their main comic book universe. However, that all changed in 2010, when the character was brought back to star in his very own Batman Beyond series that would later survive the perils of the New 52 and is still ongoing today. Number 5. Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy Olsen, a photographer for the Daily Planet and close ally of Superman and Lois Lane, is arguably one of the single most recognizable non-superhero characters among DC fans, and has been a part of the Superman mythos for decades upon decades. However, the character of Jimmy actually did not debut in the comic books themselves. A Jimmy-esque office boy did appear in Action Comics number 6 in 1938, but the photojournalist we know today as Jimmy Olsen first made his appearance in the radio show The Adventures of Superman in 1940, the purpose of his introduction being to give the titular hero someone to actually talk to. Jimmy was then given a design and a more fleshed-out personality by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who transferred the character over to the Superman comics in 1941. Jimmy Olsen has since become a mainstay of the Superman lore, appearing in countless DC comics, as well as in numerous television shows. He also happens to be the lead in What Culture Comics' #1 comic of 2019, which is a pretty prestigious honor, all things considered. Number 4. Phil Coulson. I have a lot of time for Phil Coulson. Clark Gregg was a great presence in the first couple of MCU films, and while we can sit here and bemoan how much Marvel hasn't always managed to take the best cues from the MCU in their comics, the introduction of Coulson to the comics has been pretty great. Gregg's performance was equal parts charming and funny, and it's translated perfectly into the Marvel Universe. Sure, he doesn't have as big a presence as he did a few years ago, but Coulson still rocks up and is a nice compliment to the Furies and Maria Hills of this world. Number 3. Harley Quinn. Batman the Animated Series is considered by many to be the best comic book-based cartoon of all time, DC or otherwise. The show not only did a lot with the Batman mythos, but also brought its fair share of new ideas to the table, i.e. the aforementioned RENEE Montoya. However, the show's biggest success regarding an original character is undeniably Harley Quinn. Quinn was created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, who introduced her in the show in 1992 as a henchwoman/romantic partner for the Joker. Needless to say, the character went on to explode in popularity, and is now one of the most successful comic book characters of all time. Harley's popularity in the animated show would eventually carry over to the comic books. Since being introduced in the Batman Adventures #12 in 1993, she has become one of the most prevalent characters in the main DC universe, appearing in her own series, as well as other big-name titles like Suicide Squad. I love Harley, and it's kind of amazing how much she's come since her first appearance. Poison Ivy's her girlfriend, she's got her own show and film, it's just brill. Number 2. X-23. Believe it or not, Wolverine hasn't always been the most marketable X-Men character by default. Because of this, and in an effort to drive up interest in the character among younger viewers, the 2003 animated series X-Men Evolution introduced X-23, Wolverine's clone daughter who had been designed as the ultimate killing machine. The character's inner struggle with her creation and purpose has since been fleshed out significantly. Laura made her comic book debut in the adult-oriented miniseries NYX, which explored her, as well as other characters' dark experiences. She has since become a mainstay of Marvel Comics' X-Family, starring in several different series, including her own, and even taking up the mantle of Wolverine after Logan was killed off. Number 1. Barbara Gordon. While there are a lot of technicalities with this entry, it is an observable fact that Barbara Gordon as we know her today would not have existed in the DC comic books had it not been for the influence of a live-action DC adaptation. Way back when, there was a character in the comics named Batgirl, but she was not Barbara Gordon, and she, along with the original Batwoman, were abandoned by DC in 1964. Barbara Gordon's Batgirl, however, actually came about as a result of the 1960s Adam West Batman TV show. The character was the brainchild of the show's producers, who wanted to add some more female representation in the third season to broaden the program's appeal. It was also their idea for the character to be Commissioner Gordon's daughter, so they decided to reach out to DC in order to option the idea formally. And while Batgirl did debut in the comics before Yvonne Craig donned the costume in the TV series, it was only by a few months. The fact remains that, had it not been for the TV show, the character, who has since become one of DC Comics' most enduring female protagonists, would not exist at all. And that was our list. What are your favorite comic book characters who appeared on screen before the comics? Let me know down in the comments below, and please don't forget to toss us a like, share, and subscribe if you're feeling generous. You can find more articles like this at whatculture.com/comics. More of me on Twitter at @EwanRuinsThings. That's all for now though. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!